All right, so I want to do my WrestleMania predictions really quickly. So, it doesn't really feel like a WrestleMania, even though it doesn't really feel special. There's no matches on the card that's like, it's making me excited to watch it. I'm still going to watch it, but it doesn't feel like, all the other WrestleManias, usually like a couple matches that you're just really looking forward to. I guess they did the best of the roster that they have, but it just doesn't feel special. Again, with this WrestleMania, it's going to be two nights, just like last year. The only difference is it's going to be, we'll finally have the fans back in the crowd. So that's like it's something I'm really looking forward to seeing, a crowd back in the event. So I'm just going to go over some of the matches, what I think is going to happen. So this is night one. This Saturday, we have Sasha Banks defending the SmackDown Women's Championship against Bianca Belair. Honestly think that this match should be the main event of night one. I have a feeling it's going to be a really good match. It could go either way. I could see Sasha winning, and I could see Bianca winning. I think I think Bianca should win the match because there's sometimes with like like title belts, and sometimes a wrestler doesn't need the championship, and sometimes the championship helps elevate the wrestler. Like the Undertaker, for example, he never really needed any championship belts. The character himself, was enough, and he was over. But then again, you have like certain people that kind of need the championship, and that helps elevate them to the next level. I really feel like if Bianca wins, and she becomes the women's champion for SmackDown, that's going to help elevate her. And I can see her, looking long term. She could obviously feud with, she'll have return matches with Sasha Banks, for the following pay per views, and then she can work with Bailey because they already have that history. And then on SmackDown, she can work with Natalia, and even Tamina. But like she could have a really long, like I would give her like a really long title run, and make her really strong. Um, so I could definitely, I would, hopefully, she will, Bianca Belair will win. We got Bobby Lashley defending the WWE Championship against Drew McIntyre. So I wish Bobby Lashley had a longer title run because the way looks, it looks like he's just going to be dropping the title to Drew McIntyre. They're going to give Drew McIntyre his win in front of a crowd. Unfortunately, last year, he didn't have that opportunity because they couldn't have crowds because of the pandemic. So they're kind of trying to make up for it because I knew that this was the direction they were going right after when the Miz cashed in, and then I was like saying, well, the Miz is going to probably drop it to Bobby Lashley, and then they'll have Drew McIntyre challenge Lashley for the title at WrestleMania. It's kind of like like Lashley's role is kind of like the Brock Lesnar role, I guess you would say, but yeah, I mean, I look at long term, when I'm thinking. I know WWE doesn't think of long term, but I'm just thinking of like what is planned for the pay per views ahead, and after WrestleMania. And I just feel like Drew McIntyre last year had been champion for he was champion for majority of 2020. And I'm just looking at what's the next contenders for him really as a champion. You probably had the return matches with Bobby Lashley, maybe Sheamus possibility, but who else is after that? I don't know. Lashley as the champion, he can be that dominant champion until like SummerSlam, and they could build up somebody in the meantime, a top babyface, for example, maybe Riddle. I don't know, but like somebody that can, and then he would beat Bobby Lashley, but Bobby Lashley would have that long, dominant, title run. But I think Drew McIntyre will win the championship again. The WWE always wants to make the fans home happy. So I think McIntyre will win the championship. Uh, Bad Bunny teams up with Damian Priest against The Miz and John Morrison. A lot of people complain about The Miz, like saying like how WWE doesn't treat him well or something like that. That they're putting him in a match with Bad Bunny. But I think that's the opposite. I think they really trust The Miz to have a good match with Bad Bunny, seeing that this will be Bad Bunny's first match. So they do put a trust into Miz. Of course, Bad Bunny and Damian Priest are going to probably win that match. They're not going to have him lose in his first match in his first wrestling match. And the Miz and Morrison, they're getting really stale. I don't know if there's any way they can revamp the Miz character. Maybe take him off TV for a while. But he's getting to that point where it's just like go away heat. And I'm just not really interested in watching him. John Morrison, I wish they would give him more of a singles push. He was a big star outside WWE, and in Impact and Lucha Underground, and even like AAA. So I was hoping maybe that they'll give him more of a singles push. We have the New Day defending the Raw Tag Team Championships against AJ Styles and Omos. That would be almost his first match. I could see AJ, them winning the tag titles. The New Day need to break up, they're just like, it was. I just feel like it's good that Big E's going on a separate, getting a separate push, but I just feel like the New Day's been played out for a very long time. They've been I feel like it's time. They with Kofi Kingston about 2 or 3 years ago, they gave him that push and he won the WWE Championship. So and now he's back with tag teaming. Is this hopefully they'll have better ideas for the New Day in a separate singles run. Braun Strowman versus Shane McMahon. This is kind of like a weird match. I don't understand why these two are feuding. I don't understand why Shane McMahon had this big vendetta against or thing against Braun Strowman. It doesn't really make any sense. It's going to be a cage match, so you're going to have Shane McMahon probably doing a dive, jumping off the top of the cage or something like that. I don't know. I don't know. Do we really need a Shane McMahon match on here? And you look at Braun Strowman, they really killed him since last year's WrestleMania. Last year he was filling in for Roman Reigns, and he beat Goldberg for the WWE Championship. And and then afterwards, he had that feud with the Fiend, which kind of killed him. And again, anybody that feuds with the Fiend kind of that kills your career. But so I could see, I would say Braun Strowman will win this match. I don't understand why Shane would win. Braun Strowman should win the match, I guess. Then we have Cesaro versus Seth Rollins. This is probably going to be a really good match. I know now they're really putting a push on Cesaro, and this is kind of I think they said this might be his first singles match at WrestleMania, especially on the main card. So they have an interesting feud going on. Kind of reminds me of Ring of Honor because they both were from Ring of Honor. For me, I think Seth Rollins will probably win the match. And I don't think it would destroy Cesaro's push if he loses. Because they could easily have a rematch, down the road on either SmackDown or the following pay-per-view, and Cesaro can get his win back. But I think you want to keep Seth Rollins strong as a heel, because I don't know what the plans are, especially down the road, who wins the WWE or the Universal Championship match. But you want to keep Seth Rollins strong as a future contender for that championship. And with Cesaro, he can, easily, get a win back at a later event. And then they have a tag team turmoil match. Lana and Naomi versus Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose, and versus the Wyatt Squad, and versus Natalya and Tamina. I guess you have to have a match on the card where you have the bathroom break match, and that's probably this match. The break, to get up, get some more food or something. I really have no interest in this match, unfortunately. But I guess the winner will take on we'll get a shot at the women's tag title at this night 2. Who do I think is going to win? I would like to see the Riot Squad win because they're an actual tag team, and I think they should get a shot at get a run with the tag titles. Probably Lana and Naomi's going to win because of the storyline and Lana's history with getting put through the table by Nia Jax. So I would it would storyline wise would make sense for them to win, and then eventually Lana like getting revenge and winning the beating Nia Jax. Okay, so now we go to night two. This is going to be Sunday. The main event: Roman Reigns versus Edge versus Daniel Bryan for the Universal title. A lot of people were complaining that this feels a lot like WrestleMania 30, where Daniel Bryan being put into the triple threat match. Again, we're like 7 years later. Uh, I really feel that you know Edge. It's weird. Like I don't understand why they turned Edge heel midway through. Like I don't know if like WWE was like lost faith in him, or they felt like the crowd was gonna like trash the match or boo Edge, and they put Daniel Bryan into the match. I know the original plan, or one of the original plans, was for Roman Reigns to defend against Daniel Bryan, and then things got shuffled around, and I guess they needed an opponent for Edge, and they were like, "Oh, let's have Edge win the Royal Rumble." So, but I'm looking ahead, looking down the road. I think you need something different, especially on SmackDown, something that that people would want. Sometimes like a title change will increase viewers because they want to see the change. So I think Edge, because Edge hasn't been champion for like over 10 years, since he dropped the title or had to relinquish the title because of his injury and had to retire. So it made sense. It would make sense for Edge to finally come back, make that comeback, and win the championship. And he could have matches, matches against Daniel Bryan at future pay-per-views, and Roman Reigns. So I would say Edge should win the match and should win the title. Asuka versus Rhea Ripley. Again, this was kind of thrown together at the last minute, I believe, because I think they were going with Asuka and Charlotte. And then Charlotte, I guess they had to pull her out. I don't know if that's because of COVID. But yeah, so again, I thought they were going to eventually make this a triple threat match, but they still haven't. I mean, I guess they still have an opportunity to do that. Who knows? But for this match, I think it's time for Rhea Ripley to win the title, just as a change on Raw. It's just that Asuka's been the dominant champion for the last couple of months. Ever since pretty much all of 2020, and I don't know what more you could do with Asuka as the champion. I'd like to see Rhea Ripley again with Bianca Belair being that that dominant champion, and I could see her feuding with like a bunch of people on Raw, something different. I mean, you could start building up Peyton Royce as like a top heel, and I could see them having a good feud, and that's a possibility. And then we have the Fiend versus Randy Orton. Okay, with wrestling, sometimes sometimes you have like these long build up feuds that are like really good, and you can't wait for the match. And then you have these long build up feuds, and you're just like, okay, can I have the match already? Because this is like going way too long. I mean, this is how the Fiend and Randy Orton feud has been going on. I feel like it's been going on for too long, and just get rid of just let's have the match and move on. Unfortunately, Randy Orton, last couple of months have been really, like I think this past year has been kind of his best, in ring work, and his promos have been really good. But I'm not a fan of the Fiend. I'm not. I just feel like the Fiend destroys people that he works with, their character. Remember what he did with Seth Rollins a couple years ago? Hell in the Cell. Seth Rollins was like the top baby face on Raw, and then after his feud with the Fiend, he became like that kind of destroyed him and he kind of went down the card, and I don't think he was ever able to recover from that. Look at Braun Strowman, his feud with the Fiend, and how now look at him. Who else? I mean, I don't know how you book the Fiend really. I mean, is he? I know now they're trying to book him as a babyface, but I don't know his presentation. Reminds like a heel, I guess, but they're booking him as a babyface. So I'm assuming you have to have the Fiend win. He's been like they just brought him back. They're not gonna have Randy Orton beat him in his first match back since the December pay-per-view when they were set on fire. So they'll have the Fiend will win, and then they'll probably have a rematch with a special gimmick match or something at the next pay per view. But what's next after that? And what does the Fiend do? Does this Fiend, we don't see the Fiend for a couple of months again until creative figures out what to do with him? I mean, is the Fiend gonna challenge the winner of the WWE Championship match between Lashley and Drew McIntyre? I mean, it would be more, if Lashley, walks out the champion, and the Fiend is the babyface, they can feud and have a match. But if Drew McIntyre wins, he's a babyface, and the Fiend's a babyface. So does that mean does Drew turn or does the Fiend turn? Who does the Fiend feud with next? I don't know. We got Big E versus Apollo Crews for the IC Championship. I'm really glad that they're not having these multi-person matches for the titles. They're not usually at past WrestleManias they would have for the IC title or US title, they would have these 4-man fatal 4-ways or a ladder matches. They're nice and all, but I just like the one-on-one match. That's the best. I mean, Big E and Apollo Crews have been feuding for a couple of months already. I would have preferred Apollo maybe beating Big E for the IC title maybe at the previous pay-per-view. That would have made more sense. But, seeing that Big E has beat Apollo Crews pretty much every time they wrestled, it's okay, I mean, what am I I mean, doesn't, I mean, I get Big E's probably going to win the match. I mean, this is probably the blow-off to their feud. So Big E will probably win. Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn, another match that I think was kind of thrown together. You have these guys that have nothing; they're not really doing anything. So okay, let's have them feud, and they do have that history. I mean, again in real life they're best friends. They have a history from Ring of Honor and all that. But it'll probably be a good match. And they have Logan Paul. Never heard of this guy, but he's going to play a role in the match. I see Kevin Owens probably, winning that match. Riddle defending the U.S. title against Sheamus. Again, another match thrown together. I don't think they're going to have Riddle lose the title so soon. So Riddle will keep the championship. And then you have Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler defending the tag titles against the winner of the tag team turmoil. And then you have the hosts, Hulk Hogan and Titus O'Neil. I'm okay with Titus O'Neil being the host. I think that, especially all the stuff he's done for, the area and all that stuff, I think he really deserves to be the host for WrestleMania. Putting Hulk Hogan in there, I just don't think that that's a good decision. I'm a fan of Hulk Hogan, back, from, back in the day when he was wrestling and, all the NWO. But I know the reason why they picked Hulk Hogan to be the co-host, because with WrestleMania, you think of WrestleMania, you definitely think of Hulk Hogan, especially, the first, 9 WrestleManias. He kind of, had a big role, main evented and all that. But I think time has changed, and I look, especially, a couple years ago when he made those, racist comments, and stuff like that. It doesn't fly too well nowadays in today's society. And I feel that even when he came back for Raw, a couple years, a year ago when they still had the crowd. I mean, it might have been for Mean Gene Okerlund when Mean Gene Okerlund passed away. The crowd was not Hulk Hogan used to get these really big pops. If you watch the day the Raw after WrestleMania 18 when he came out, that crowd was going crazy. And especially I think when he made a return, I think in 2003 on SmackDown, they gave him the crowd gave him his ovation that it was it was such a big pop, and the crowd was going crazy for him. But recently when he was on Raw, when the crowd was there, we wasn't getting the same reaction, the Hulk Hogan reaction. It was kind of people weren't really I mean, some people might have even been booing him. So I'm curious to see how the live crowd reacts to him. And again with the hosts, what are they going to really do? Though they're in the beginning, and they do the the introducing in WrestleMania. I mean, and then all of a sudden they disappear for a while or something. And you're I think that I think Titus O'Neil should have been definitely the host, but I think they should have picked a female to be the co-host. I don't know who that would be. Bailey would have been a kind of a fun host to be, in my opinion. But again, we'll see. So that's my predictions for WrestleMania. Again, It doesn't feel like a WrestleMania again. Like, we don't have the Undertaker, unfortunately. He's been such a, like, the past couple years of WrestleManias, he's been kind of like, the Mr. WrestleMania. Everybody's like, every year you're like, oh, who's gonna be the Undertaker's opponent at WrestleMania? I feel like a lot of guys, especially AJ Styles, there wasn't really much that they wanted him to do, but I look forward to watching it, and we'll see what happens.